All right, all right, all right. Let those notifications go out. Here we are. Yes, even if it's a couple minutes late. So this is why I tell y'all that we get up here, it will be around 2 p.m. Eastern time. Close enough, okay? Because there is, there's stuff that we're working on and things like that. And it always takes me a minute to get the stuff typed in that description. But let's let those notifications go out. I'm going to go ahead and the comments over here. I want to go ahead and just, we got to cover this because it's very important so that we don't, so that we don't disobey God. And so let me find I'm going to find the Bible stuff here because it's all about recognizing the moot in our own eyes, right? Okay, so got to pull the beam out, right? Okay, so, right, Matthew. And, okay, so Matthew chapter 7, verses 4 and 5. So let me go ahead and find that over here. I know normally I would have that ready. So bear with me. Thank you for your patience. Because it's really something to, here we go. All right, Matthew 7, 4 and 5. Okay, so we've got that. And we're going to cover this. Let me go ahead and do my sound check real quick. Because it's very important. I want to make sure everything is. All right, there we go. There you go. All right. So, welcome. Come on in. I'll give y'all some time to get those notifications. All right. Yes. Okay. So, again, we're going to cover Matthew chapter 7, verses 4 and 5 regarding overcoming narcissistic tendencies ourselves. Oh, yes. Because this is all part of the process. We cannot get up here or go anywhere exposing behaviors of the evildoers that we ourselves may still be engaging in because we don't know any better yet. It's all part of that self-reflection that narcissists will never do. So let's get these formalities out of the way, shall we? Yes, all right, as the Wi-Fi does what it does. Yeah, it gets wonky sometimes. Hi. Yes, we are going to get to that as well. There's a lot of things, but God put it on my spirit to start out with overcoming narcissistic tendencies for those who need it. Because Chosen One, we did get subjected to that. And until we knew better, we ourselves engaged in some of those. And we did have some. All right, so it does take a little time because we cannot, right, again, we cannot be hypocrites like that, okay? We cannot be exposing behaviors of the evildoers if we're still engaging in some of the same one. Now, mind you, Chosen One did not engage in all the same one. That's the difference, okay? That is the difference. It's all part of the transformation, all right? The transformation that had to take place by the renewing of the mind. So we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to be ready to go, okay, and accept the fact that, we got to knock that off. Okay? Never forget that, because one of the things that we come to realize is that these narcissists teach us how not to behave. All right? All right, and what not to do. So we learn this when we get in God's reality. So let me get the formalities again out of the way. Thank you for understanding. I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA Let's Just Chat show, streaming on the YouTube channel, Narcissism and Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center while combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. Trauma healing and spiritual growth, that's right, occur with God wisdom, basic scientific facts, tried and true technique, and more here and at CHAAcademyBTBW.com. The link is listed below. Some of you may need to copy and paste the link to view what CHAAcademyBTBW.com offers to help you level up your trauma healing and spiritual growth. Y'all, I got to let you know something. God downloaded a ton of stuff today, and I got to share with you because this is what God does. And I was trying to figure out why with some of my college textbooks. I was trying to sell them. I even went and rented a booth at the flea market for a day. I was trying to put them on Nextdoor in bundles. And I was like, okay, these are just not selling. What's going on? I know there's a college student who could use, even though they're used, the information is still relevant. Well, God told me why today. And they've been in my trunk, the car, because I got space issues. Well, I'm going to have to get a bigger bookshelf someday. God had me write down a whole list of courses to bring you all. He said, that's why. God said, that's why he made sure that those college textbooks did not sell, because he told me today. He did. He had me write it all down. He said, you are a teacher. You're not just a preacher. You're not just a prophet, a minister. You're not just that. He said, you're so much more. Chosen ones, you need that message. God said you are so much more. And there are no limits on God. Because when we go out there, we want to start snatching back our stuff, God said, he said, that's how you're going to snatch back. Is you're going to use the textbooks that you paid for to snatch back. Because we live in a narcissistic society, right? So if it is a narcissist that needs that book, they're not going to buy a used one. Maybe, maybe not. But most likely, if they are a high-minded narcissist like that, they're going to want the latest, the greatest, the newest, the brightest, the bestest. Okay? So God told me, he said, those checkbooks are just fine. He said, the information that contained therein, I can simplify it and bring it to y'all. I can share the knowledge. There'll be a lot of y'all that may have wanted to go to college and for whatever reason were unable to. Well, guess what? If you're interested in forensic science, criminal justice, forensic toxicology, metal toxicity, oh my gosh, I can bring it all to you. Okay? So just know that this is a growing community, okay, of spiritual warriors for Christ, because chosen one, we enjoy learning. And so God said, I won't be sitting on that. And so he had me walk on out to my trunk this morning. And I'm like, okay, well, which ones are we keeping? Again, he already had me do that once before when we were talking about fellow warrior was letting me know. I'm trying to think. It was right now, not that. I'm trying to think of which one the CYP enzyme that go along with the trauma bond course. It's going to dovetail off of that to go a little bit deeper into, how the neurotransmitters. Okay, so because we got a request. So when I get a course request, listen, y'all, if there's something that is in my area of expertise that you would like to learn and would like to see a course about at CHA Academy, let me know. Okay, because that CYP enzyme one came as a request because it's going to go a little bit deeper into the specific enzymes associated with those neurotransmitters that are manipulated during the trauma bonding process. Okay, so that was a request. So God had me go to the trunk in my books. Okay, all right, now overcoming narcissistic tendencies. We've got to do that. Yep. It is ironic, I know, that they do. This is the thing. They show us, and they have actually taught us how not to behave, how not to act, and what not to do. Because we learn that they do everything opposite of what God says to do and not to do. And so, I have to think about courses. Well, Chris, you're the one that requested that CYP one, and so we'll get to that. Thank you for your patience. But I got other stuff on the way. All right, God has me doing some in steps. So I'm just giving you a heads up that for any of you who may be wondering, why it is. Let's say you're trying to sell some college textbooks, all right, and they're just not selling. Ask God why. There's something. There's something with those that He needs you to do, to co-create with Him. So there you go. A lecture, maybe, a webinar. There are no limits on God. I'm going to tell y'all, don't do that. Don't get tricked into putting limitations on God. Because, see, I did that. When I first got started, that's what I had to unlearn that. I thought that consulting and coaching sessions was going to be the only thing that we were going to do. God said, no. He said, I have a whole lot more. Oh, yeah. When God says He has a lot more for us, He ain't kidding. But we have to overcome those narcissistic tendencies ourselves. Some of them, okay? Listen, we did not engage in all of them, all right? But we did engage in some. Because I want to tell y'all something. That social influence, because I myself had to overcome it. So you're not alone. So it's like, I may not know, like if I go and partner with another organization or let's just say network, and we're working together on a project, right? And I don't know their boundaries, but I quickly learn what they are. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, typically we do, we'll text or talk frequently when we first meet, discussing the project, how's it going to work, that kind of thing. But because we have work to do all the way around, all right, we learn real quick that, okay, if he's not going to answer that text, that's the boundary. And so people will show us their boundaries. So we learn to set boundaries as well. All right. And we don't always know what boundaries to set right away. Okay. That's part of the healing and the discoveries and things like that. All right. We don't. And God knows this. He says, I know you don't know what boundaries to put in place yet. We do know no contact. We do know to learn to tell them to no. That saying no is okay. And not allow them to manipulate us. See, we've got that. Hey, listen, chosen ones, we realize that we do have that power and authority on the inside of us to not allow them to do that. And so that's how we keep ourselves balanced. And so we have to recognize the beam in our own eye, right? That Jesus tells us this. So let's cover the scripture, shall we? Let's cover God's word. All right, it's in chapter 7, Matthew chapter 7, starting with verses 4 and 5. But let's go ahead. I'm going to start at the beginning, verse 1, because it goes. Awesome, right here. Okay, starting with the very first. Judge not, that ye be not judged. Remember, judging often takes place by outward appearances. Did we do that at some point in our lives? Sure. I know I did. Maybe not all the time. Chosen one, we didn't do it all the time. Think about the infamous conversation about some people who go shopping in their pajamas. We were judging based on outward appearances. Yes, we were. So we knock it off. Because we start thinking, you know what? Hold on a second. That's not our job. That's God's job to pass judgment like that. We're not. And you know what? We don't know their story. See, that's part of renewing the mind. We don't know their story. Maybe they ran out of detergent and they had to go to the store to get some. So you don't know. You just don't know. And because we don't know their story, we can't be judging, lest we get judged ourselves. Now, mind you, chosen ones, yes, listen, the narcissist will always judge us based on our outward appearances. Y'all know oh my gosh, I shared that narcissist email, right, from a narcissist about my outward appearance, right? Okay, so we get it all the time. But, yeah, well, like, whatever. It does not trigger us. That's what they're trying to do. And they want to try and change us. That's another reason why. Okay? And so we did pass judgment occasionally in our lives. But we learned to stop doing that by the renewing of the mind. That's right. Again, we were not judgmental about outward appearances on everything, but how about how our food looks when we go out to eat? Oh, yeah. Come on now. Had that conversation many times with narcissists, haven't we? I'm telling you, we've got to admit these things to ourselves. Because we once were, as we're told, we once were also walking in darkness. But now, we are walking in the light. It's the changes that got to take place with us. And I know this is going to be harsh for some to hear. The fact that we need to take accountability for ourselves and recognize, okay, judge not that ye be not judged. Then it goes on in verse 2. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. Another way of saying that we reap what we sow. So if we're judging based on outward appearances, well, then it's going to come back to us. Now, mind you, when we stop judging based on outward appearances, and we still get it, we don't let it get to us. We know where it's coming from now, and we understand that, you know what? That's a narcissist, and they're not going to change. Now, just because we engaged in some of these chosen ones does not mean that we were ever a narcissist. Maybe part-time. Okay, yeah. We have to overcome that. And chosen ones are the ones who want to change. Chosen ones are the ones who want to grow up. Chosen ones are the ones who want a better life. Chosen ones are the ones who want to live a healthier life. Chosen ones are the ones who want what's best for others. Okay, chosen ones are the ones who want nothing but the best. Even for them, hey, yeah. I told God, I said, you know what? I wish those narcissists the best. Well, let's keep on keeping on. Turn it over to God. We prayed for them. Turn them over to God. Okay? Because it's kind of another way of saying, well, it's like eye for an eye, right? There you go. And then in verse 3, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? This is what I noticed about the Jezebels out here too. If they love, well, all narcissists love to point out the bad behaviors of others, but not recognize the moot in their own. See, this is something that we start to see clearer once God awakens us and we are in His reality. We start to realize that their action and word do not match. And we start to understand better. Hold up a second. All right, it's part of our changes that had to take place. So we realized that that's what they're doing. And so like that Jezebel case study, I was catching on pretty quick. Okay, that she loved to point out the narcissistic behaviors of coworkers and family without recognizing the very same narcissistic traits in herself. Goes on in verse 4 to say, or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye. Same thing. Going around and exposing behaviors that we're still engaging in. We can't do that. That's hypocritical. And in verse 5, thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Right there. I was talking about how we get to see clearer. Once we get ourselves. Got to go through those changes, and we got to overcome the narcissistic tendencies ourselves that the world taught us. Let's remember that. Okay? Narcissism, the abuse, all of that is learned behavior. So we too, well, we didn't know any better yet. And so this is what we were taught. Maybe in school, by family members, what have you, we were being told how we're supposed to live our life according to the world and according to the spirit of religion. So we learned that, oh, hold up a second. Because, yes, like I've shared with you all before, that in my early 20s, oh yeah, I got corrected. Because when I was chasing the modeling dream and I would call back home, I would just start talking about me. Everything I was doing, everything I was accomplishing, everything I was getting into. And I would ask, how about when you call? Could you take a moment and ask how we're doing? Oh. I was like, oh, wow. And then that hit hard. So you could say I learned to knock that narcissistic tendency off early, way early. And I am grateful for that. So, yeah, it's like the God spirit in them stepped in and was like, to take in consideration, hey, you know, when they pick up the phone and they say, hello, how are you? You say, I'm doing well. How about you return the courtesy? Ask how they're doing too. Speaking of, y'all, drop it in the comments below if you're comfortable enough, or, you know, yeah, in the comments on the replay or the live chat, wherever you're comfortable. Let me know how are you doing. And yes, you, Chris, let me know how you're doing with that, your ribs, okay? How you doing? All right, because I want y'all to know that we do care. I may not ask y'all all the time, just like I don't always tell you that I love you, but you should know automatically that I do, because the chosen ones have the God love. God is love, right? So you got God on the inside. So it's like we don't have to say it all the time, okay? And so we do have to overcome that narcissistic tendency. I did. And like I said, in my early 20s, I'm grateful for that I had learned to knock that off. Because it looked like I may have been headed on that road to, had they not stepped in and corrected me. You know what I'm saying? So, but see, as a chosen one, we don't know that then. But as a chosen one, we learned that, oh, well, yeah, we do. And the thing is, we also learn to stop saying the I, me all the time. We learned that part of the renewing of the mind is that we learn to become inclusive, because this is a growing community of spiritual warriors for Christ. We're here for each other. We're not going to get the kind of support that we need from no narcissist. Okay? You're not going to get it. You can get it in the community. So that's why I don't want y'all to be left hanging if you got questions and things. But I will go ahead and let you know that if the questions get too personal, I'm not going to answer. Okay? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Chris. You feeling better? Okay. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Heavy on my, heavy prayers for you, all of you, seriously. And yet, we have to learn that there are other people out here besides ourselves. We know this. Narcissists do too, but they don't want to accept it. Yes, okay. The webinar idea, yeah. Yeah. That's right. And we're not to be judging a neighborhood by appearances either. There's a caveat to this. It's not that we're passing judgment on a neighborhood by the way it looks, but we do consider some things as to where we want to live with. We do have values and standards and things like that, right? Okay, well, that's fine. And we also know, I'm going to share with y'all something. When I used to deliver pizzas, okay, there was this one house I really dreaded going to, but it was what it was. It was part of the job. I didn't have a choice. If it came my turn and that was the delivery, it was what it was. So I did say heavy prayers for those folks. But when I pulled up and their house was off the road a little bit. Now, it was, a decent neighborhood, normal neighborhood, average, all right, except for this one house. And I was not being judgmental. I was just making a note. But, I mean, they had garbage everywhere in the front yard. You walk up to where they would take their delivery. Inside, nothing but garbage along the wall. It really was something to see. And yeah, it was sad. That's what it really was. Very, very sad to see. And it was what it was. I'd deliver the pizza and be on my way. What to do about something like that? Just pray for them, because I also understand that narcissism on the societal level can do that to people. Yeah. And it does. And the thing is that the person who was taking the pizza delivery was in one of those motorized chairs inside the home. So, prayers, because we understand that the Matrix does that to people. It wears down on their psyche. And so they just give up and give in. They stop caring about hygiene and just regular everyday maintenance things. They stop caring about that stuff through all the traumatization. And so we can understand, because we've witnessed narcissists they just give up and give in, and others. And let's face it, that is another narcissistic tendency that many of us had to overcome. Not over everything, but because chosen one, typically we don't buckle under pressure. In fact, it's usually quite the opposite. Is that we get more productive under pressure. But see, that's something else we learn that we don't have to do in God's reality either. Believe me, I cannot tell you the number of courses, okay, that I'm not even going to count right now. Because I've got the top 3 that we're working on, top 3 priorities. And one of them, yeah, so I got 3 top priorities. Remember, this is what God told me to do with all of this. And he gave me a whole nother list. I'm like, okay. But we don't have to, have it all done in one day. It's not going to happen. So, as we are pulling the beam out of our own eye, before getting up to expose the behaviors of narcissists, we have to overcome narcissistic tendencies ourselves. So I gave y'all yes, okay. Yep, if they're on their own too. But I'm gonna tell you something. That matrix out there wants people dependent on it and it alone. Doesn't want people dependent on God alone. Never forget that. We are in a spiritual battle for the mind. Of course, we don't know this until later, But I just want to share with you all these things because we have to. And then, of course, we talk often about, again, in Matthew chapter 7, verse 6, give not that which is holy unto the dog, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. That's what the evildoers kept doing. We give them our empathy. They just mirrored it back to us. Tricked us into getting trauma bonded. That's right there. Right? And so we would offer them our compassion. And they would give us the cold shoulder. So, those are the things. Now, I will tell you that as True Blue Chosen One, one thing that we don't have to overcome because we never developed it is the nose. The nose in the air represents a haughty spirit. So, glory be to God that we did not have to wrestle with that one. Or at least, I know I didn't. So, and I would like to say that most chosen ones, no, I would think all chosen ones would never have had that narcissistic tendency to turn their nose up, because that is a sign of demonic possession. Think about it. When we come across somebody, right? Oh, it's happened to us. It totally happened to us. That we would just look in the direction of the narcissist, and what they do, that's right, they would turn to the side and their nose will go to the air. Oh, yeah! In the last environment I was in, the male Jezebel did it all the time. I'd look in his direction, he'd do that. Do they know they're doing that? Because they're demonically possessed. They don't know. They have no control. It comes a point in their life, they think they have control of themselves, but they don't. So I wanted to share that with you for overcoming narcissistic tendencies, because it's very, very, very important to understand that if we don't, right, see, there you go. I'm glad you recognized. I didn't say anything, Chris. I was waiting to see if you were going to catch that. So, good job. Good job. That's how it works, y'all, is we are recognizing things in ourselves, okay? So, good job. All right, good job. Yeah, I did not mention that comment for that reason. But so, good for you. And so, right, never been haughty. You know, a haughty spirit, you know, it really comes with that high-mindedness. It is that they think they're, right, they got that holier than thou, right? It can come with some flamboyancy. It's definitely the opposite of being humble, right? And God tells us to do what? Gotta humble ourselves. So it takes a lot of time, yeah, and it takes courage to do this as well, to overcome some of those narcissistic tendencies ourselves, because let's face it, it's social influence. A lot of it we were taught. We didn't know anything else. This would be another reason why we have narcissists out here. It's because they never do think to look within themselves, because they're constantly entertained and distracted by the glitz and the glam, and they hang on to their traumas to relive them. Crazy, I know. And they know that if they can hang on to their traumas, it'll get them attention at some point, somewhere, from somebody, from another crept and unawares. That's why God awakened us at his appointed time, so that we can do that inner work. It's all part of that inner work, to recognize things. Those of you who have been with this ministry for a time, you know I have no problem letting y'all know when I stand corrected. I'm not chosen one. That kind of pride of not wanting to admit when we're wrong, all right, that is a narcissistic tendency. Yes. There was a time early in my life where I had that. It was very embarrassing to admit if you were wrong, right? So we had to overcome that. And we did. We humbled ourselves. And we said, you know what? We don't have that demon of embarrassment. There's no reason to be. No. Because we're also told, Jesus said, yeah, we are not ashamed of our Savior. No. So we're not ashamed of God. God said we have no reason to be. Which means if we've got no reason to be ashamed, we'd be who we are. Then we don't have the demon of embarrassment. There's no reason to even experience that. If we're wrong, we're wrong. That's why I tell y'all, if I'm wrong, let me know. Okay? I like to know. And we're even told that the evildoers don't like to be corrected. Chosen ones, we like to be corrected. I don't mind. If I pronounce something incorrectly and you come in and correct me, thank you. We do it for each other. That's how iron sharpens iron. Right? Few times have had to eat humble pie. I get it. Okay, everyone. So there's that message with overcoming narcissistic tendencies ourselves. And I know that message is going to fall on, it's going to be, it's not for everybody. That's for sure. Because we have to, if we want to grow and mature and strive to become more Christ-like on a daily basis. Not a pushover. God says no. We're not to be pushovers. God and Jesus, we're not pushovers. You know, Jesus tells it like it is. He taught tough love. And so now we're doing the same. By letting y'all know, hey, we can't be up here exposing wickedness if we're still engaging in that as well. So we have to overcome it. Does not make us saints or perfect. No. It just means that we put away the childish thing. 1 Corinthians 13:11. We've gotten a hold of ourselves. That's all we can do. We get a hold of ourselves. We're able to maintain emotional regulation no matter what is going on out there or what comes our way. I'm going to remind y'all that, when you're out and about and you see these toddlers in adult bodies acting up, you feel like, seriously. Because you know where it's coming from. And you know why. So we want to remember that. Now, let's dive into it, shall we? Don't worry about the typos. They're kind of funny sometimes, okay? That's the way it is. We're not striving for perfection here. No, not at CHA. We are not striving for perfection. We know there's room for improvement always, and so we're always fine-tuning and tweaking that positioning. So let's get into this. All right. As I mentioned yesterday, to give y'all some food for thought. Apparently, the world has taught that babies are born with the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Well, we know that the devil believes his own lies, because I was asking God, I was like, okay, since when Chris shared that, I had never heard that before. I've never read it. I've never heard of that before. And so it I was like, okay. That's why I said thank you for sharing, because it was just like not sitting right on my spirit. But it made sense as to what happened to me as I'm going through the recovery process, right? Because I'm overcoming that dizziness, right? I'm aware of it. Okay, my depth perception was a little off because my circulation was messed up. And so, yeah, and so I was trying to figure out, I was like, okay, because I knew that the enemy was trying to instill that fear in me. It didn't work. When you have that heightened awareness, the enemy is not going to be able to, So no, it didn't work. It never did. It never will. And I'll tell you why. Because I was like, I wasn't born with that fear. And then the other one, because I was not wearing these as often as I normally would, it did cause my auditory senses to be a little, I don't want to say sensitive, but yeah. And so the enemy would know this. So he's trying to instill that fear of loud noises for when I put these back in. The fire drill. You know what I'm talking about, Chris. I think like, whoa. Right? So it didn't scare me though. I felt the electrocution from it. But it did not scare me. Because my high frequency hearing that these in and out has improved. At least by 5 decibels last time I had it checked. And I got on my spirit that it's increased even more since. Because all my walks and stuff, when the sirens go by, it does not bother my ears. It does not scare me. But I do feel the electrocution because I still have metal molecules that we're detoxing from. So I take it as, if I'm not sure where they are. I mean, I know where they are because of a bruise, but other ones that I may not be aware of. So it's kind of cool. I use that as an exercise. I'm exercising. I'm on my speed walk. And when one of the fire trucks or whatever comes by, I pay attention. I'm like, okay, where's it activating? There's one. Okay. Now I know where you are. That's what I do. That's the thing, y'all. Turning negatives into positive. All part of that heightened awareness. That's how I handle it. Because I know I'm not afraid of that. But that's what the enemy was trying to do. And now we know why. Because the world believes that babies are born with that. And what did that process put me through? Exactly. A literal physical rebirth. Right? Like I mentioned before. Having to learn how to walk again. Having to be re-potty trained. And then over time, the speech, because of the lack of circulation and a little dizziness, some words came out stuttering or just weird occasionally because of that. Not that I had to learn how to talk again, but I did with the new plate. Partial plate. So went through that. Yeah, so I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Trying to instill the fear of falling. But you know what God revealed to me is that the enemy was doing that prior to being dragged down the stairs. Because in the other environment, there was a family member who was having issues with doing a lot of that and ended up inside the matrix quite often. And so, right, that was before. And so the others in the environment would talk a lot about it, right? Using that subliminal word, fall. Well, in the spiritual, that means fall from grace. Because we did do that every time we stepped out of character. Okay? So, there you go. But the enemy is all about the physical. Oh, he knows about the spiritual. But if he can't get up there, when we are awake, our subconscious is awake. The enemy can't touch us. So the only thing he had left is the physical. So he was trying to get me, he had me kind of going through a physical rebirth, almost. Well, pretty close. And in an effort to try and instill fear of falling and fear of loud noises. Well, I wasn't born with those anyhow. And so then I asked God, I said, wait a second. A baby being born with a fear, this does not make sense. This does not make sense, because what is fear? Right. I mean, it is an emotion, right? It's a negative emotion. It's a feeling, right? Remember, like I said yesterday, when we were younger, and let's say we went to the store, and let's say we got distracted by something, and our caregiver just started to walk off, and we would turn, and they're not there anymore. What did it do? Exactly. As a young toddler, you have to first experience that to even know what that is. That's what I'm like, a baby being born into this world, they don't even know what's up. They have no sense of awareness yet. I said, that makes sense, because you have to be aware of something to be afraid of it. Because I know, I have seen toddlers when they're first learning how to walk, right? And they fall on their little bum and they start laughing. That's not a sign of fear. I know y'all have seen that too. So yeah, I've seen them, the babies, that when they're first learning how to walk, they're a little wobbly, right? Because they haven't got locus of control yet of their muscles. Think about it. And that is a sign of humility right there. When they're learning how to walk and then they just fall, and then some of them laugh. They're laughing at themselves. They thought it was funny. That's not fear. Right, and the fire drill. Oh, the fire drill, y'all. That's part of the fallen world. Okay, that fire drill they do, it's required by the state and the city and the town and blah, 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 of course. And I can understand the premise behind it, though. When you think about it, okay, I understand the premise. Absolutely. I mean, come on now. This is an apartment complex now. So you got to have those measures in place. You know how the fallen world is all about safety. Okay, so we understand that part. So we're not complaining about it. It's just it surprised us the first time it happened. I was like, because I didn't know what that thing up there was yet. But I also have been taking notes. So I know their patterns. Okay? Because it's part of the world's RF poisoning. So once we know the patterns, we can do something about it. Like, I've got some earplugs on standby. Well, right. In other words, you would think that it wouldn't have to be that loud. I know. I got you on that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because not only that, you're right. Okay, so you say a baby doesn't care about that falling when they're learning how to walk. Well, yeah, they don't even know what care is yet. And think about it. So I asked God, I said, well then, all right, that makes all the more sense that babies are not born with fear, because they have to first know what the heck it is. They would have to have experienced. They've just been born. All they're doing is and then maybe a smile. They're trying to wake up. Right? So it just did not resonate, because I was like, well, the enemy was trying to instill fear of falling and loud noises with me with that last incident. I understand that. And now we understand why, because the world teaching that. But I said, spiritually, it didn't sit right. And I said, no, it don't make sense, because we have to first be aware of something. You have to experience a particular emotion that would be the result of that. So I said, okay, well, God said, think about your circumstances for a moment. What have we learned about the autonomic nervous system, right? Okay. Well, it has to get manipulated to live in fear first. So that further debunks babies being born with any fears, because it's the autonomic nervous system that has to get conditioned first to live in fear. So now I know why I didn't get hearing aids until age 3, because like Chris and I talked about on the Patreon channel, that it doesn't make any sense. I was like, the first 2 years of my life, you cannot tell me that she didn't notice that there was an auditory issue, at least within the first 6 months to a year. I mean, it just didn't make sense. Wait till I turned 3 to get these. That's when we made a connection. Because you know how narcissists are stunted emotionally between ages 3 and 5, right? Think about it. So around age 3 is when we start to develop a sense of awareness of things. That's when we start to experience different emotions. You can't be emotionally stunted between ages 3 and 5 if you're not experiencing the emotions there, right? Because for the first couple of years of our life, now for me, because I did not have the hearing aids yet, I don't even remember getting them. I do, however, remember going to speech therapy before enrolling in kindergarten. So it makes sense why. Because, and not only that, when I turned 3, the sibling had just turned 1. So there's that part. But what God revealed to me was that it is around age 3 you start to, well, how am I going to start experiencing any kinds of emotion, right? Unless I can hear. So the enemy would know that high frequency, until recently in my life, high frequencies, I wouldn't be able to hear them. You know, like how a dog is the only one that can hear a dog whistle? Okay. I wouldn't be able to hear the higher frequencies. Well, I could hear them with the hearing aids in, but they would used to make me cringe. It used to startle me a lot. A high-pitched baby cry was, eh. It used to. That's the key word, used to, in the past. So it would be around that time. And I had to go through speech therapy and things like that, get caught up to get where I needed to be to enroll in school. So the enemy knew that my low frequency hearing was pretty good because I could hear it without. You see, without the hearing aid, I could hear low frequencies very well. And even with them in, I can feel them, I can sense them, that vibration. So he knew that that was not going to work on me. He wasn't going to be able to use the low frequency to manipulate my autonomic nervous system. He could only do it with the higher frequencies, which explains, again, getting these at age 3 and finding out that, oh, okay, the enemy had to know which frequency would work on me. So there you go. But again, God had me make that connection because during that incident, She played drums on the backside because it had to give off the appearance as though the lower buttock is reacting to low frequency. Okay? It had to give off that appearance. Try to trick me into thinking. Yeah, see? Spiritual battle for the mind. And so, as I was laying in bed one morning and that smoke alarm did it beep, I felt a slight tug upward at a little above the tailbone. And I went, aha! Gotcha. Connection. And since noticing that, it don't do it no more. It can't, because you're aware. See, that's the thing. When we become this aware of how our body is responding to certain frequencies, it stops responding that way. It might take a little time, but it does. Okay, because you become aware, subconsciously aware that, oh, that's what that's doing. And the reason it was doing that is because that's what the enemy wanted, because it used to work in the past. So I was able to make additional connection with the turning on of the oxygen tank, high frequency, and how my ANF was recognizing the high beeps from the laundry area, even though they were not very loud at all. But it was making that association. So I was like, because the high frequency worked in the past, where before God awakened me, there were some things that would scare me. But when God awakened me, right, and starts to clear all that. And then, of course, I'm on the blood type diet, I'm working out, starting to see what's really going on all around us, getting God's wisdom, things like that. My ANF got unconditioned. And so now I just had to go through another unconditioning cycle. So once we become aware of that connection, it's like, aha. So yeah, it makes sense that babies, they have to have some sense of awareness in order to be afraid of something. And so they don't even know that the first year or two. I don't see how. Because it makes sense though that it would have to be around age 3 that we start to even get any sense of awareness. Because by then we can walk, right? And we have a little bit of that locus of control now over our muscles, right? Because we can walk. Usually most babies, toddlers by age 3 are walking, right? Or should be. Talk about on average, y'all. Okay. So, with that being said, and why they get stunted emotionally between ages 3 and 5. It does not mean necessarily that they are demonically possessed between ages 3 and 5. I believe demonic possession can occur at any time for the non-chosen one. I believe it can happen at any time. And I will say that high school would be the most prevalent time for them to become demonically possessed. Because if they got perfectly programmed through the system, right, their ego kept getting stroked to the point where they internalized all that, right? There you go. So it can happen at any time, but it just doesn't make sense that a baby would be born with the fears. It really doesn't. Right, they just sleep, wait, eat, and poop until they're starting to, right, exactly. They don't know. I mean, it just, that's why it didn't make sense. So, the earliest childhood memory that I have is I would have to say speech therapy, because I was finally able to hear and then finding my voice. So that's the earliest one that I have. And I want to say I was 4, maybe 5. It was before going to kindergarten, I can tell you that much. So that's the earliest one for me that I have. So there you go. And never forget, you all, that the autonomic nervous system is very dependent on our senses. I've said that before. I got to bring it back, because it's important to understand that if we are going through the detox, we are also unconditioning our ANS. Just know that. Okay? So that's what I was thinking about with you yesterday, Chris, when you told me about that maybe an issue. Yeah, I was like, oh, I hope that's not it. Because this is why I have suggested and I advise everybody that if you're going on this detox journey with us, when you decrease your sodium intake, you'll hear this again, that you don't want to do an extreme. So if you find out, for example, that your baseline, let's say, is around 3,000 milligrams a day, you might want to reduce it the next day to about 2,900. Yeah, a little at a time. I mean, even 100 milligrams less every few days, or, a week, however you want to do it. It's noticeable. The body's going to notice that. Because if you drastically reduce and you were taking in way more than 1,500 milligrams a day, which most people are, we all have, that you don't want to reduce it to 50% right off the bat. No, you will throw your body into a shock. You have to remember something, okay? That anything in excess become toxic. All right? See the big book right here. Okay? All right? Anything in excess becomes toxic. And so if it's toxic and your body is working on eliminating it, you don't want to throw your body into shock. I learned about that. Okay? Yeah, it's very important to understand that trying to reduce drastically, this is why. Okay? This is why you've learned about how there are certain other substances used to help get people off of another substance, which never made sense to me, still doesn't. But that's the premise behind it, is that so it doesn't throw the body into shock. Because there's going to be moments as your body's internal temperature is re-regulating, there's going to be moments where you're going to be like, okay? That's normal. It's going to feel like you're, but it's temporary. Okay? It's going to do that. And so you have to be careful. That's why I've advised to take it easy, one day at a time. Don't try to get ahead of God during the process. That's why I've also mentioned, if you are doing a certain task, right, you're moving a certain way, you want to be mindful of how you're moving. Okay? Yes, you want to be mindful of how you're moving, because you don't want to twist or turn the wrong way. Because what's happening is the excess salt that was in those muscles and areas and stuff like that was stiffening things. Yeah. So if you're doing light stretches, yeah, just a little at a time. Make sure you breathe in and out, a little at a time. You know how, like, when you cool down after a workout, just a little bit at a time. You don't want to do too much right off the bat. Okay? So just a little bit. Know how you're feeling. It's okay to go slow. In fact, you want to go slow. Especially if you are detoxing from taking in 3,000 plus milligrams of salt a day. Definitely want to take it slow. And one day at a time. And a little bit of a reduction at a time. Until you get down to around the 1500 mark. And so you'll notice your body's changing for the better. And so things that we experience during the detox with minor aches and pains should be minor. Okay, they should be minor. Now, it may surprise us if we move a certain way and ping. So don't get tricked. But hold on a second. However, if it persists, because it should, you become aware of it and you're like, oh, okay, that's letting you know where a toxin is located also. Okay. And it should dissipate. It shouldn't linger. If it continues to persist and linger, okay, now you got to go, oh, hold on a second. I might want to need to have this checked. That's fine. Go get it checked. I'm not telling you not to, but you do want to take an assessment because it should pass. Because I know while I'm on my walk, every now and again, I'll have a little ping, but it doesn't stay. It goes away because of the circulation. So there's a lot of things going on. And I don't want y'all to be sitting there. I don't want y'all to sit there in pain and suffering. Okay? So there you go. I wanted to give that to you as a reminder and some additional things to keep in mind. Right. It is a big book. Right. No, I'm not going to say weaken bone. No. You got to remember something. Radio frequency, it interferes with our calcium homeostasis. So you got to remember that area, I mean, it's tricky, but it's not weakened. That I can tell you. No. You work out, things like that. Just keep an eye on it. And seriously, if it persists, I highly encourage you to don't ignore that. Well, and that's possible too. That's possible. I mean, there's all kinds of things that's possible. This is why I say you really want to, especially, I mean, if you've got a bed that has a hard part to it that if you roll over, okay, well, that's probable. See, I don't have that. My pull-out bed there is all cushioned, so it is possible. Stuff I'm saying is that, yeah, it could have, and a decrease in salt can have such a dramatic effect. Well, I mean, it does, because it's this. I know. That's why I say it's a detoxing process. And you want to take it one day at a time and be really mindful and paying attention to how you move, what you're doing. Definitely do not take on more than you can handle at one time. That's right, because the radio frequency affected the brain. Absolutely. How it affects the brain. And that's going to take time. So again, remember, if you feel tingling or heat coming from the top of your head, let it, okay? Don't be standing underneath. See, these LED lights are facing me. They're not above. So I can feel the heat coming out, okay? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I just really want you all to keep in mind, I'm not going to steer you in the wrong direction. I also want you to consult with God and use your own discernment as well. Because my circumstances are definitely different, as I'm recovering from a physical incident. So I've got bruising, and bruises heal, called ice pack. So chosen ones, we typically have a higher tolerance for pain, but you got to remember something. Radio frequency is also designed to, as stated in that article that I share on the Patreon channel, that radio frequency poisoning can lower a person's tolerance for pain, which is ideal for the enemy. Okay? But because there's those of us, like I've said before, who have played sports and we have been avid exercisers for a long time, even on and off, we're not a stranger to minor aches and pain, strains, sprains, you know. So that's why I shared with y'all the journey that I went through with the ankle boots and how God had me level up and loosen the amount of compression, because I had to ask him this question. I said, okay, if I've got a bruise in a particular area, why do I want to put an ace band? Why do I want to wrap that up? Because if there's a bruise there, it needs circulation. Why am I going to compress, which does what? Hinders circulation. What? That makes sense. Because if I'm going to compress something, it basically just going to make it numb to where I don't feel it. I want to feel it. I want to know where it's at. Especially during the detox. You know what I'm saying? That way I know where to put an ice pack. So I want to be able to feel it. Even if I don't see the bruise, I want to know where it's at. So I know what to ice pack and what not to compress. Because the whole point of the detox is to have improved circulation, because let me show y'all something. This will help y'all. Yeah, hold on a second. Okay. With my green superfood, the soup that I make, I can also use it as a juice. Just, so I have one in there that like my own version of a V8, which is yellow squash, carrot, zucchini, kale, broccoli, and I believe that has great northern bean. Yeah. Okay. One more time. I saw the Wi-Fi do that. Okay. It is yellow squash, carrots, kale, spinach, broccoli, zucchini. Well, yeah, zucchini, carrot, squash, kale, spinach, broccoli, great northern bean for the creamy part, and then of course the usual garlic powder, onion powder, and dash of cayenne pepper, and then no salt added tomato sauce, just a little bit for the V8 part. No added salt, nothing. And so what I did, I put some of that here. I just put the about like right that much, okay, in one of these. I put the soup in there, and then I fill the rest with a bottle of water. I got me a V8 juice, and that goes with me on my walk, because the circulation does what? Help those nutrients get where they need to go. So there you go on that. So God said I need to share that with some of y'all, to give you that tip, because it's going to go with what's coming. Now I got the butter bean for the new batch of green stuff that I did. Yeah. But I use Great Northern in I believe. To the best of my memory. But I switch it up. Remember, it's based on what bag is open. And then also, if I wanted to do, it's like I did another portobello mushroom, but I used the butter bean. And I also got fresh basil. Let me tell you, that pairs really well. I'm just saying, very soothing. So, to get those nutrients where they got to go. Right, and you would want fresh air to get that circulation going too. Okay. The brain fog definitely is also part of the radio frequency poisoning over the years. You have to stop and think about something. Okay. Before God awakened us to and from this narcissism and the abuse and the traumatization, we, chosen one, were under at least a half of cloud of cognitive dissonance. Okay, we were under a half of sleep. Because we noticed, that was weird, but we didn't know anything else, so we oftentimes dismissed it. And because of cognitive dissonance, we did what? Would make excuses for the bad behavior. Oh, they're just having a bad day. Because that's what we were taught. Think about it. That's what we were taught. But we often would pick up on that stuff. It was just like, okay, that was weird. And because we are subjected to radio frequency poisoning on a daily basis. This is just, it's the reality. But there are things we can do to alleviate and become aware of. See, once we're aware of it, the negative effects, it's not going to, because we'll know what to do about it. So we start detoxing from it by reducing our exposure to it and reducing our sodium intake. A little at a time. You don't want to throw your body into shock again. But yes, part of that brain fog. Think about it. Okay, what do we know about the metal and what they need to live in and what the salt does, right? For those who are new to this discovery and this truth, is that the body, excessive salt and sugar help the body create more mucus. Mucus pockets are what's needed. And there's going to be salt in there, right? Obviously. For those of us who have tasted our own, it was pretty salty. Pretty salty, right? I mean, we have too much salt in the body. And so what's happening is it forms a mucus pocket. Blast radio frequency, right? We have some exposure to it. Ingest some form of toxin, metal toxin usually, and it's going to find itself inside. That's what it needs. It needs a mucus pocket. It needs a house. That little metal molecule will sit in there. And with the salt, right, it's the heat. Salt is the conduit for temperature. Salt is our body's thermostat. So with the salt in there that warms that metal molecule up, one thing I learned in my toxicology program is that metal molecules will expand in warmer temperatures. In cooler temps, they tend to stay pretty small. And so what that does is it will travel to a place of injury and or fatty tissue. So wherever we have fatty tissue on the body and or a place of injury, a bruise, that is where that metal molecule is going to travel to. And as the salt heats that up and it expands, it gets a little bit bigger, that's when you will experience aches and pain. It's from the metal, not from the heat, from the metal that's being expanded by the salt that is heating it up. So this is why we go through the detox. We are combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. Because what that does over time, a constant, remember, having those metal molecules, I'm going to tell y'all, when I'm on my walk, and I hear those sirens, because I'm on the journey with y'all that have joined us, okay? So I know where about some of those molecules are because I can see the bruises, but for the ones that I don't know, I let that frequency tell me because the frequencies are electrical shocks. And so when it sends out electrical shocks, it activates the metals. So if I feel like down the back of my calves, right, I feel a little like almost like a goosebump feeling, but it's just being a little bit electrocuted. I see where you're at. And so we know where to apply additional ice packs. Shrink them molecules. Let them get into circulation to get out of the body. So that's how we do it. Because we're becoming aware that this radio frequency all around us is being used to electrocute. What happens to the head when it is constantly being cooked, right? That internal heat is what causes, because you're basically, if you have got that excessive salt and sugar, you got a lot of mucus. So your head is swimming in a pool of mucus. And so, yeah, add internal body heat to that. Of course, you're going to have some brain fog. You won't be able to think clear. Perception, it will be way off. You're going to perceive things as being bigger than they really are. So that's not good. So that's why as we go through the detox, the body is re-regulating. Because when we can get the internal regulated, circulation improves, nutrients can get where they got to go, and it's those nutrients, y'all, they're going to help push those toxins out. Oh, the enemy knows this. The enemy knows this. And so I just want to give y'all that again, because it's very important to understand that you want to live your best life, right? Well, how are we going to do that if we're not striving to live a healthier life? We want to take care of this temple for the Holy Spirit, right? We should want to. And so, yes, we would have some of those behaviors due to the radio frequency exposure being higher than it should be. And so we would. And not only that, because of that delirium going on, and I have a little of that. So because of that, we could get easily tricked into impulse buying. Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on the size of them, the original size. All I know is that if the condition's right and the heat, they will expand. But because they are being housed inside that mucus pocket, right, they're only going to expand to the size of that pocket. Each mucus pocket is a different size. So that's why you will feel one pang that, boom, that's probably a big one. And then you'll feel another one that's a little bit dull. That's probably a smaller one. And also, here's another thing, because it just happened to me. Air pockets. Okay? Y'all got to remember something. Air pockets. Because we do, as we eat and drink fluid, we do ingest air. And so another natural part, you're going to hear more about this. Another natural part of the detox is a little bit of the belching, and it is what it is. Because your body's loosening. So every once in a while, you might feel, let's see if I can find the best way to describe it. It doesn't hurt, but it's kind of like a, if you've ever had a jumping nerve, like on the eye, we've had that. But it really just feels more like it feels like a little bit of a rumble, but it's an air pocket that's loosening. Okay, because there will be some air pockets throughout as well. And I know in my case, a lot of the air pocket, well, not only came from and poor circulation, but the when I quit smoking cigarette, I used a vape to do that. And then I had to quit the vape. So for about 3 months of nothing but vaping, well, I'm going to have some air pockets in there. And I'm going to come out. So that's that. And so every once in a while, if that happens, don't be alarmed. Don't be embarrassed. It's a natural part of the detox process. The body's trying to get rid of stuff. And think of it this way, too. Is each time, either in the mouth or the other end, you will feel the heat. So that's another way the body is getting rid of some internal heat. And so you want to get rid of it. So there you go. All right, because you're trying to cool the inside of that body down, because the cooler it gets, right, things will shrink, metal molecules will shrink, because they are water soluble. So that's why as we start intaking more water or juices, what have you, with water, right, and we're walking it, right, some of you may notice, you may feel, I know I have, I'll feel one as it starts to move. So that's how that works. And so it gets it back into circulation so it can get out of the body. All right, everybody, so that's that. You know, we always say, and more. Right, you can report belching, okay. Right, and it's not too frequently. That's the point, okay? Thank you for sharing that. Because, yeah, it's just usually, I know for me, it's typically right after I've eaten, not right after, but let's say I had a burger for lunch, right, with lettuce as the, I didn't have bread, I used lettuce as the wrap. With tomato, onion, of course mustard. And so I ate that. And so I go start to put my makeup on. And it was probably within the first 5 minutes of doing that activity. It is what it is. So, and then nothing since, really. So, it's not too frequently, but every now and again, it's your body's way of getting rid of some excessive heat. And also because you got to remember another thing that happens with radio frequency poisoning. It interferes with proper digestion. Think about that. When the internal heat of the body is too high, you're not going to be able to properly digest. And so unlike what the world thinks about those things that are a natural part of digestion, yes. Okay, so if you are doing any of that, it's just, yeah, these narcissists would always try to make us feel embarrassed if we belched or if we let loose elsewhere. No, that's the body doing what the body needs to do. So the narcissists always try to make us feel embarrassed if that happened by giving us those looks, right? As if we just did something wrong. That's the trick of the enemy. Because if you don't get it out, that just prolongs pain and suffering. Never forget, the devil has got to find ways to prolong pain and suffering because he knows that our bodies are strategically designed by God to get rid of the things that don't belong in it or even on it. Okay? That's how God designed us. And the elimination process be pretty quick, which is why the enemy has to do what he can to prolong things. That's all he does. All right, everybody. So we are at the, yes, I built before, right. And yeah, I believe yesterday's live stream, maybe, or what have you. But yeah, it has happened. And even if it happens in videos, y'all understand why. I don't do it on purpose. Yep. Okay, an unusual sensation in the gut. Okay, as long as it's not painful, then yeah. Well, I have to go ahead and share this with y'all. That as your body is eliminating the toxin, okay, you will feel pain and pain right as your bowels are working their way to come on out, every now and again. Yeah, we shouldn't feel that. It should not feel that way, but you will experience a little bit of that. It's not bad, just slightly discomfort, a slight discomfort. Thank you. But as far as a sensation in the gut, it depends, but most likely digestion, something settling, something readjusting, absolutely, all of the above. Okay, just a settling. Okay, are you hearing like when it does that, are you hearing like a gurgling sound? But okay, good. I'm glad it's not painful. But if it's a gurgling sound, like another rumble, but gurgling, it usually is that digestion. Our hunger sensation is different. So as you will learn about later on, that part of this combating radio frequency poisoning is important because we need to know whether we are digesting or hungry, because a lot of times when this is being cooked and on fire, our internal body heat, we're not able to sense properly whether or not we're hungry or digesting. And we'll often if it's that settling, gurgling, that's a digestive process. We would often get tricked into thinking that was hunger. It's not. And so that would trick us into doing what? Exactly, overeating. Okay, well, there you go. Gurgling, yeah, it's just settling, you're digesting. That's what that is. Doesn't mean you're hungry. The hunger is more of I don't want to say burning sensation, but that's the best word I can come up with at this point. It's not really a burn. It's just kind of that kind of sensation. You know what I'm saying? And the hunger typically doesn't make noise. It can, but I'm learning that. I know I've said previously elsewhere that it might be a different kind of a rumble. I'm now learning that not necessarily. It's just a slight kind of a burning sensation, but they're not necessarily going to be, because if it's any kind of gurgling sound, that's digestion. That's digestion. So that's good. That's good because your body is starting to be able to digest properly. Oh, that is progress. So everyone, we have hit the 1.5 hour mark, and so I'm glad that, yes, metal molecules eliminated. Okay, they are eliminated via bowels, urine, phlegm, sweat. Yes. Okay, and then it really. So if you start to notice your mucus is getting a little bit more liquidy, get it out. I'm telling you, you're going to hear this again. You want to get it out. Because there'll come a time where that will stop. It's just that the excess has to get out. So once you are able to access that, and usually what God revealed to me today even, is that the simple process of chewing will loosen that. It plays a role in the circulation. Okay? So there you go, your tips and things. And again, I'm going to be bringing you all this stuff in a nice, neat little package in order, okay? So that way you're not feeling as though you're getting these tips all scattered about everywhere. All right, everyone, so there you go. All right, that wraps this one up, overcoming narcissistic tendencies, what God revealed about the fact that babies they're not born with any fears. And then we talked a little bit more about the detox process and the normal stuff that goes with it and what it is and why we're on that journey for better, healthier living. So there you go. And as always, if you have any additional questions, yes, chewing properly. Thank you. Absolutely. And taking your time also. Try not to eat too fast when you do eat. There's your final tip on that. All right. I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA's Let's Just Chat show, streaming on the YouTube channel Narcissism and Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center, while combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. Trauma healing and spiritual growth occur with God's wisdom, basic scientific facts, tried and true technique, and more. Excuse me. A little tickle there. It happened. Yeah. It happened. It happens every once in a while. Okay? Yep. Tried and true techniques and more here and at CHAAcademyBTBW.com. The link to the academy is in the description below. Some of y'all may need to copy and paste the link to view what CHAAcademyBTBW.com offers to help you level up your trauma healing and spiritual growth. Sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching, listening, and for your support. Till next time, let's show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.